It's now my great pleasure to introduce to you NASA's new Chief Technologist to talk to you about his new program, Dr. Bobby Braun.
There we go. Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for being here. I'm incredibly excited to be here today. As you'll see in my talk here, in a way, I feel like I've been planning for this day my whole life. And it's a great program that we've been putting together. There have been a great group of people that have been helping me put this program together. Just to start off, I got to say, I get a lot of credit sometimes for putting this program together, but it's really the team of folks from around the agency who have come to Washington and helped me build this program that deserve that credit. And frankly, it's also the ideas that we've already been getting from many of you, the ideas that have been pouring into us from academia and from industry, from all over the country about the kinds of technologies that NASA could be investing in, and frankly, should be investing in to enable our future. And that's really what today is all about. I want to ask you one thing. I want to ask for your focus, and more importantly, for your interaction. We're not here today for you to hear me talk. You can go on the internet and hear me talk, apparently. Or I can travel around and visit you at your institutions and you can hear me talk. We're here today to get your ideas, to make the planning of this program complete, to improve the planning that's been done to date. So I'd really encourage you to ask questions throughout the day today, and certainly in the workshop format sessions tomorrow. And I really encourage you to get engaged during the breaks with a number of members of my team or myself that are here today for that purpose. So let me get started. Rather than jumping right into the programmatics, I thought that I would share with you a little bit of the history of my professional life. Many people have asked me as I've traveled around the country, how did I become the chief technologist for NASA? Was that something that I was planning? Those of you that know me well already know the answer to that. No, it's not something I've been planning. This slide here is just kind of a montage, if you will, of some of the things I've been involved with over my life. I want to start out in the upper left corner there, an image that will be familiar to many of you. It's an image of the Viking lander on the surface of Mars. My interest in technology began as a young child. I was 12 years old when the Vikings landed on the surface of Mars. I had a friend, a neighbor, who, I grew up in Maryland, and I had a neighbor who brought me to the Goddard Space Flight Center so that I could witness the landing of these systems. And it was an amazing day. Actually, I still remember it today. It was amazing for a number of reasons, right? The science that came out of Viking was certainly amazing. The exploration that occurred and the inspiration for future exploration that occurred as a result of Viking. But for me, the landing of the Viking missions sparked an interest in that machine that landed on another planet, built by humans, built by people all around this country. For a 12-year-old boy, that's actually the first thing I remember about an interest in the space program, was the landing of that mission and the excitement on the faces of the engineers that had devoted their lives to building that system that had done something that no one else had ever done before. Totally amazing experience. And all I wanted to do was be a part of that. So I studied hard. I went through high school, went through college like many of you, became an engineer, and right out of college I joined NASA. And of course, why would I go anywhere else but to the Langley Research Center? Langley was home to the Viking project, so obviously if NASA was ever going to send another Mars mission to send another mission to Mars, they would do so from Langley. So off I trotted to Virginia. And when I got there, I found a very different scenario. I found a research center, still strong in its research roots, but not as coupled to NASA's missions, at least at that time in the late 80s. And the very first project I was assigned to is in the upper middle of this slide. I worked on plans to send humans to Mars. And what an amazing dream that was. Right, for someone right out of college, right, to come into NASA and to start working on sending humans to Mars. I was engaged with engineers all around the country planning what, at that time, President Bush called the Space Exploration Initiative. And I was involved in designing systems, very large systems, to land those humans on Mars. Of course, many of you know the Space Exploration Initiative didn't occur, at least not as planned. But I had sharpened my skills. I had learned all about Mars and how to land things there. And so in that same time frame, some people from the Jet Propulsion Laboratory came to Langley. And they came looking for those same Viking engineers that I had gone there to look for. They still weren't there. And instead, what the folks at JPL found were a couple of kids like me that were dreaming of working on sending spacecraft to Mars. And so I joined the Mars Pathfinder team really when it was still just a concept. And I worked on that technology, the technology required to land the Mars Pathfinder mission and the Sojourner rover, shown in that image, on the surface of Mars. I worked on that from concept through the design of the hardware and the testing, through the preparations to launch, through the cruise, and of course through the July 4th, 1997 entry, descent, and landing of that system itself. I took that concept, along with, by the way, a team of people from all around the country who are still my friends today. I took that concept from, that idea from concept all the way to flight. And as a young engineer, I remember thinking, wow, NASA's awesome. This is what NASA does. We dream of great things, and we go make them happen. And I assumed, quite naturally, that that's the way it would always be. That's the way every project that I would work on in my professional career would go. Why wouldn't it? Pathfinder worked out that way. So the next mission I worked on is shown in the upper right-hand corner of this slide. It's called the Mars Microprobe mission. It was sponsored by the New Millennium Program. It's also called DS2, Deep Space 2. These were two basketball-sized aeroshells, about this size, and shaped, as you see in that image there, shaped a little differently than other Mars landers. But the most novel feature of that system was that it was what I would call a single-stage entry, descent, and landing, or entry, descent, and impact device. It was designed to fly through the Mars atmosphere, just as shown in that image, with no deployables, no parachute, no airbags, nothing like that, and go all the way in a stable aerodynamic orientation to the ground, impacting the ground at the right orientation and delivering a penetrator into the Mars subsurface. There were about 4 or 5 people that worked on the design of that aeroshell. An incredibly small team, but a great way to learn. I find that you learn much more on a small team when you're given large responsibilities and when you can actually get your hands dirty than you do on a large team where you spend a lot of your time in meetings and telecons, as I do now. Anyway, the Mars Microprobe systems were built. They were tested, they were built, they were launched. They were launched with the Mars Polar Lander. And we all know what happened with the Mars Polar Lander. It was lost, not to be heard from again after arriving at Mars. And by the way, the Deep Space 2 probes weren't heard from again either. They were deemed a failure. $25 million is what the agency invested in that system that was deemed a failure. Well, just below that image are 2 sample return capsules in an Artist concept, returning from Mars, returning with precious cargo. This is the approach that's the baseline today for the Mars Sample Return mission. The Mars Sample Return mission, as we all know, is one of the key robotic missions to Mars in NASA's future. It's one of the grandest robotic missions that I can actually think of. To go to Mars, to gather the right set of scientifically selected samples, to seal them up and bring them back to Earth to study for all time. And if you look carefully at those Earth return vehicles, or Earth entry vehicles, you'll notice that they're single-stage Earth entry vehicles. Now, prior to the time of that artist concept, prior to the late 90s, all previous Mars sample return studies had utilized a sample return capsule with a parachute. In fact, all NASA sample return missions that I'm aware of, at least, going all the way back into the 60s, 70s, and so on, had planned on using a parachute to softly land that system when it returned to Earth. Now, the Mars sample return mission I just mentioned is key to NASA's future. Yet in this time frame, in the late 90s, there was a shift, a fundamental shift in the way that mission was planned. Now, it hasn't happened today, but that shift is still embodied in the baseline mission. When NASA does the Mars sample return mission, and I'm confident that one day we will do so with a single-stage entry system. And so I ask you, was the Mars microprobe mission really a failure? Or was it just a $25 million precursor, a demonstrator, a test vehicle to things to come? One of the reasons we invest in technology is not just for the next mission, but to change the way we think about the future. In fact, it's not just the Mars sample return mission that's looking at single-stage entry vehicles now. There are a whole host of sample return missions being proposed by a whole host of organizations, industry and NASA alike, for return of samples from asteroids, from the moon, and elsewhere. And many of these proposed concepts have assumed a single-stage entry system. Well, after that single-stage entry system, I went off and worked on another problem. This is all while I was at NASA Langley. I worked on the idea with a group of scientists and engineers from academia. The scientists were largely from academia and the NASA centers. The engineers were largely from the NASA centers and industry. I worked on the idea of one day flying an airplane over the surface of Mars. The Aerial Regional Scale Environmental Survey mission, which is shown in the bottom right image of this slide. This is something that had been often thought of, been discussed, an idea that had been in what I call concept land for a long time. And the key thing holding this idea back was the idea of building an airplane that would have to fold up, fold its wings and its tail to fit in the launch vehicle to get ready for launch, and then somehow open up and fly over the surface of Mars, which here on the Earth is roughly equivalent to the atmosphere at, say, 100,000 feet. There aren't too many airplanes flying at 100,000 feet, as you know. And there certainly aren't very many airplanes flying at 100,000 feet that started their life all folded up in a ball, if you will. So what we did in this technology development project that was also part of a science mission directorate proposal, in just a few short months, we designed that airplane. We actually built a half-scale model with help from industry. And we took that half-scale model up to 100,000 feet, folded up on a high-altitude balloon, and demonstrated that we could deploy, reorient, and execute a pull-out maneuver from diving to flying, if you will, all in the relevant conditions of Mars. In other words, we greatly, in my view greatly, we advanced the technology the technology maturity of that concept. Now, ultimately, that endeavor was not selected. There hasn't been a science mission that's flown an airplane on the surface of Mars. One day there will be. But for me, as an engineer, I rest easy at night knowing that that technology was advanced and knowing that I can rely on that technology now in future missions. Now, many of you know that I left NASA in 2003 and I went to academia. I joined the faculty in the School of Aerospace Engineering at Georgia Tech. And at Georgia Tech, I continued these pursuits. What's shown in the lower left and the middle left portion of this image are two images related to work that was done by the students at the Georgia Institute of Technology in the design of inflatable aerodynamic decelerators. These are large, deployable systems that greatly increase the drag of a vehicle and yet package very efficiently for launch. These systems are actually much more effective than the parachutes that we use on our current robotic missions to Mars and to the other planets, and could actually be used also to return mass of various kinds from the space station in the future. It's a technology of interest to a variety of customers, both within NASA and external to NASA. And it's also something that when I work with the students at Georgia Tech, as I imagine students around the country would be, that those students could really sink their teeth into and they could get excited about, because these were systems that they could actually envision flying in their professional lifetime. If you're a student at a university today and you're graduating, in the year 2035, you'll be my age. I feel like I'm in the middle of my career. So if you're a senior at Georgia Tech or MIT or Stanford or whatever school around the country we're talking about, think about it. In 2035, you'll be in the middle, not at the end, in the middle of your career. 2035 is when the president has talked about sending humans to orbit Mars and return safely to the Earth. 2035 is 10 years after the president has talked about sending humans to an asteroid. What a great time it is to be an engineering, a science, a math, or a technology-oriented student in one of our nation's universities. And what a great time it is to use these technologies, the technology program that we're talking about here today, to pull more students, more young people into those programs and ultimately into careers at NASA. These kinds of things are what I'm all about. These kinds of things are what the Space Technology Program is about. So let me tell you more about that program. As I jump into the program, let me start off at a high level by talking about the President's budget request. Those of you that have reviewed the President's budget request know that technology development was a strong theme, or is a strong theme, in that request. You heard some of that from Tom Khalil earlier today. It's certainly a central principle of our new approach to human exploration. It's certainly embodied within the President's budget request is a reversal of the past decline that's been going on for a number of years by providing a modest increase in aeronautics, about 15% to that budget. The President's budget request includes maintenance of the mission-focused technology investments within the mission directorates, like the Science Mission Directorate. There are large technology programs in the Science Mission Directorate. It includes utilization of the International Space Station, not just in preparatory mode to study the effect of long-term human degradation in space, but for use of the ISS as a technology development platform. And for what we're going to be gathered here today for, and what we're going to focus on today, the President's budget request talks about a new DARPA-like or ARPA-like technology program called Space Technology. And within the President's budget over 5 years, space technology is $4.9 billion. Now, in my view, this is a very healthy thing for NASA, and it's a healthy thing for the nation. Because when I think about NASA, I think about 3 long-standing core competencies that make NASA unique. I think about a research and technology competency that goes all the way back to the initiation of NASA and provides the foundational knowledge or the underpinnings for everything we do. I think about a spaceflight hardware, a flight systems development competency that builds the systems that ultimately become the robotic and human exploration missions of our future. And I think about a mission operations competency that operates those missions reliably and safely. I can't actually imagine NASA without all 3 of those long-standing core competencies. And we all know that over the past decade, the research and technology piece of NASA has been down. This isn't just an Obama administration versus a Bush administration thing. This has been something that's going on for quite some time. So to have a president who's out there leaning forward on research and technology, I think is fantastic. And frankly, that's why I came back to the agency. I was very happy, as many of you know, I was very happy at Georgia Tech. I love working with the students on that campus. And it, takes something like this, a focus on rebuilding the research and technology competency of the agency, to get my juices going. And believe me, they're going. Also embodied in the President's request is an increased emphasis on partnerships and science, technology, engineering, and mathematics education. You can see this increased focus on partnerships in the President's National Space Policy that was recently released. It's a clear theme, as is fostering a commercial space industry, a clear theme. If you think about what we're talking about here, what we're really saying is that we want to cast a wide net. We want to allow all of you. In fact, we want to allow anyone in America, any innovator in our country, to be part of our space program. And through space technology, and what you'll hear about today and tomorrow, through the 10 programs that make up space technology, we believe we have the ability to engage those innovators from around the country. The bottom line is the overarching goal of the President's request for NASA is to reposition the agency on the cutting edge. And that's something I want to talk more and more about today. Now, many people have asked me, why did the President do this? And to be honest, I have to admit, I haven't spoken to him directly, so he hasn't told me. But I do speak to a lot of people in the administration, and I've heard a lot of different views. And I want to share those with you today. It's not that this policy was dreamed up in some smoke-filled room somewhere in Washington. That's not the case. This response, this focus on a research, technology, and innovation agenda came actually from many of you. It came from criticism the agency has received over the past decade. What I have on this slide are summaries from 6 different major reports that deal with technology at NASA. There are 4 NRC studies highlighted on this page: the NASA Authorization Act of 2008 and the Augustine Committee report that came out in 2009. All of these reports were done between 2008 and 2010. And you're welcome to read them. In fact, I'd encourage you to read them in great detail. I have. I'll tell you, they all say the same thing. In different ways, they all say the same thing. They say that over time, NASA has not made the seed corn investments in research and technology to go after the grand challenges that the nation expects us to go after in the future. They all say that NASA has become more and more mission-focused, more and more near-term, and less visionary, less and less oriented on enabling visions of the future. Now, I believe that NASA needs to do both. I believe NASA does need to be near-term. It needs to be mission-focused, absolutely. But NASA also needs to be all about the future. NASA needs to be about those students in the universities around the country that are going to be with us in 2035 when we send humans in orbit about the surface of Mars, and 10 years earlier than that when we send them to a near-Earth asteroid. Right? And that's what these reports say. One of the things they say, in fact, the America's Future in Space report from 2009 and the Fostering Visions of the Future, a review of the NASA Institute for Advanced Concepts, also from 2009, what they both say is that NASA needed to establish an office outside the mission directorates to focus on broadly applicable, long-term technology needs. Well, guess what, people? NASA listened. The Office of the Chief Technologist was formed. The Space Technology Program was born, largely from the input of these reports. And I want to point out, we're following the guidance from these reports today in our program planning. Now, why do I believe this technology program is important? I think you already know. I think I've already hit it by touched on this in a discussion of my own experience. But I want to give you just one additional example. And this is certainly a grand challenge. This is the example of sending humans one day, not just to orbit Mars, but to the surface, where we can explore this planet, where they can explore this planet for all of us by walking around, frankly. And this is some data that I got from the Johnson Space Center of some recent mission architecture work that they did of what it would take to send just 4 astronauts to the surface of Mars and return them safely. Now, clearly, the mass requirements for such a mission depend a little bit on how you implement that, what kind of architecture you use, when you launch, those sorts of things. And that's why there's not a line on there. There's a gray region. So I don't want you to focus, on the detail of this slide, but I want you to notice one thing. To send humans to the surface of Mars, a grand challenge, well beyond 2035, requires something like 10 or 12 international space stations of mass, not here on the surface of the Earth, but in low Earth orbit, using today's technology. Right? If you look on this slide, all the way on the left-hand side, without an investment in technology, it would take us something like 10 or 12 units on this axis, on this y-axis, where this y-axis is normalized by the International Space Station mass in orbit today. It's taken us close to a decade to get to 1 on that axis. Think about the challenge of getting to 10 or 12. In fact, think for a minute about my challenge, or someone like me, who would have to sell that to Congress. And then take a look at the mass requirements for that mission as we invest and as we mature a range of technologies. Now, I'm not saying that these are the exact technologies that we need to invest in, but for this mission architecture, we can bring the mass requirements of a human mission to Mars down from something like 10 or 12 to something like 2 international space stations. I'd love to be able to get it down to 1, by the way, and I'm counting on some of you in the room here today to help make that possible. But I would argue that if we can get it down to 2, it's at least within spitting distance. There's a feasibility proof there. It's something that we can actually discuss honorably and honestly. As long as it's up in the 10 to 12 range, we might as well not have the conversation, frankly. And to me, this is the power of technology investments. So I mentioned the Office of the Chief Technologist, and I'm going to roll out some of the organizational features of that office for you here today. The office was established in February of 2010 by NASA Administrator Charles Bolden. On my first day, February 1st, he gave me a set of responsibilities. They're shown on this slide here, these 6 responsibilities. Chief among them is to serve as the administrator's principal advisor and advocate on all technology matters across the agency, across aeronautics, science, and exploration. That includes up-and-out advocacy for NASA's research and technology programs. And what we're going to focus on here today and tomorrow, that includes direct management of the new budget line called Space Technology within the President's FY11 budget request. It also involves coordinating our technology investments across the agency. As you all know, there are technology programs embedded in each of the mission directorates. I view that as a good thing. Those technology programs are important. They're mission-focused technology programs. We need to keep those. But we also need to be cognizant of those in our planning and investing for the long term. So it makes sense that while managing the long-term investments for the agency, that this same office would also be responsible for coordinating the technology investments across the agency, including those made within my office and within the mission directorates themselves. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Cultural change is a responsibility of this office and is a big deal. I don't want to underestimate our challenge there or our focus. Changing the culture at NASA more towards creativity and innovation is the only way we're going to enable some of these technological solutions. And it's very important, something that my office is focused on. And finally, documenting, demonstrating, and communicating the reason why we make these investments. The societal impact of NASA's technology programs is an important responsibility of this organization. This is the NASA org chart. So we have the NASA centers in the lower right. We have the NASA mission directorates, the 4 mission directorates in the middle. We have a new organization run by Dr. Woodrow Whitlow, the Mission Support Directorate, on the lower left. That organization was also formed in February 2010. We have some of the support organizations like the Chief Engineers, Mike Ruskevich's Chief Engineers Office, kind of on the upper right. And we have the new offices of the Chief Scientist and the Chief Technologist, the Office of the Chief Technologist, also shown on this slide. This is where we fit in to the overall agency organization. This is where I report in to the administrator. I'll show you in a minute what the Office of the Chief Technologist organization looks like. Before I do, let me talk a little bit more about what we've been doing since February. As I mentioned in the outset, I have a great team of folks from all around the country that have come to build these technology programs. And we're not just talking about the technology of the Space Technology Program, although that is going to be our focus today. We're talking about building those programs and building relationships with the technology investments of the mission directorates. And that process is illustrated at a high level on this slide, which is really just an example of how the Office of the Chief Technologist and the Exploration Systems Mission Directorate are organizing together for the agency's technology needs. Shown on the bottom of this slide is a scale of technology readiness. So as you go from left to right, you're increasing the technology readiness of the activity. All the way on the left, we're talking about system studies, paper studies, concept work, technology assessment. As you move towards the middle of this slide, we're talking about laboratory and ground-based tests. And as you move towards the right, we're talking about flight demonstrations and ultimately operational missions, all the way on the right side. You also see 2 other arrows on this slide. One which represents the mission directorate, in this case the Exploration Systems Mission Directorate, and then towards the top, the Space Technology Program. It's important to realize that there's a fundamental difference between the technology programs that we're talking about here today and tomorrow, the Space Technology Program, and those within the mission directorates. The mission directorates are doing what I would call technology pull. Frankly, it's what the mission directorates have always done and done well. From a high-level set of goals and objectives, the mission directorates can develop mission architectures. From those mission architectures, they can flow down requirements for spacecraft. And from those spacecraft, they can flow down requirements into technologies. And they can then make the appropriate investments in those technologies to deliver those spacecraft, to deliver those missions, to go after those goals. It's what I call a requirements flow down type approach. And you've seen it at NASA previously. Within the Exploration Systems Mission Directorate, that's what they've been doing to develop their point of departure architectures for all of their investment lines in the FY11 budget. And they are investing in what I would call TRL 3, 4, 5, 6 kind of areas. They have ground-based testing. They have laboratory testing. They have flight demonstrations within the Exploration Systems Mission Directorate and the other mission directorates. And so that's shown in the middle of this slide, feeding into, say, their flagship demonstrator missions, or feeding in ultimately into future operational capabilities. The Space Technology Program starts all the way on the left. In fact, it's the only thing in the agency that starts all the way on the left, over at, say, TRL, Technology Readiness Level of 1, 2, with concepts and systems analyses. And you'll hear more about those programs later today. Through those programs in which we cast our net wide and we engage people from academia, from industry, and from government together, we'll create a whole host of visions of the future. And some of those visions of the future will be carried forward into ground-based testing, laboratory testing, in the Space Technology Program, or conceivably in one of the Mission Directorate technology programs. Those things will flow forward ultimately into technology demonstrators and into operational missions. The key difference, though, between the investments within the Space Technology Program and those within the Mission Directorates is that the Space Technology Program is purposely seeking disruptive innovation. We're not looking for a future that's a straight line from here to there. We want to break. We want to go from here. We want a discontinuity to a new future. And those are and that's the reason, frankly, why there need to be parallel, on this slide at least, parallel programs with different philosophies. One is a technology pull philosophy. The other, frankly, is a technology push. And you'll hear more about that today. Let me give you a little overview of the new office, the Office of the Chief Technologist. It's shown on this slide. And the three largest pieces of the organization are what we call divisions. There's an early stage innovation division, game-changing technology division, and a cross-cutting capability division. Within those divisions, there are 10 programs. And you'll hear about each of those programs today and tomorrow. At the top of the box, or near the top of the box, there are 4 functional offices that do financial management, communications and outreach, partnerships, innovation and commercial space, and strategic integration, excuse me. And you'll hear from members of those teams today as well. Let's see if I can fix that. Nope. Nope, stuck. Okay, so let me take a minute and give you some names. These are some of the people, I'm sorry about the slide background. These are some of the people that you're going to hear from later today and tomorrow. Within the divisions, you'll hear from Andy Petro, Jay Falker, Carl Ray, from early stage. You'll also hear from Harry Partridge, who's going to step in for us talking about early stage, although he's organizationally now over in game changing. You'll hear from Jean-Francois Bartholomew and Brant Sponberg. You'll hear from Bonnie James and from LK as well. These are some of the folks that have joined me in formulating this program from, frankly, either from headquarters originally or from the NASA centers, and have been working since February on this development. Over in the top boxes, you'll also hear, at the end of the day today, you'll hear from Doug Comstock, who's the director of PICS, Partnership, Innovation, and Commercial Space. And tomorrow morning, you'll hear from James Reuther, who's the director of Strategic Integration. Many of the other people listed on this slide are here today. And I want to just point, maybe I could ask everyone whose name is on one of these slides to raise your hand for just a minute. Raise them high. Okay, I want to point these people out to you because I want you to talk to them. The rest of you, I want you to talk to the people with their hands up because they know all the details and they are allowed to talk to you. Sometimes I actually have to say that, believe it or not. Hey, thank you. Okay, let's continue on. Ooh, interesting. There we go. So space technology. It's a different approach. It's different than anything NASA has done before. Yeah, NASA's had technology programs, certainly. In fact, some of the programs we're going to talk about, like the NIAC, have existed before. The New Millennium Program is a lot like technology demonstration missions that you'll hear about. but there has not been, at least in my professional career, an integrated suite of technology programs with a focus on innovation and creativity, with a focus on the long-term strategic needs of the agency, like the Space Technology Program. And that is, to me, a very important point. This program will be run through a set of grand challenges that I'll describe a little bit later and that you'll hear about later today. It's also going to be run from the guidance of a technology road mapping activity that we're kicking off this year as well. We're going to roadmap the long-term needs in a number of key technology areas, and we're going to use those roadmaps along with external input from the NRC to guide the solicitations that we put out and the selections that we make. Okay? This program has a full spectrum of technology programs within it that provide a natural infusion path for your innovative ideas. There is actually a path now to take your idea from concept to flight. You know that hasn't always been the case at NASA. That's what we've put in place with this program. How are we going to run this program? Well, unlike past technology programs in the agency, this is a meritocracy. Yes, I said it. This is a meritocracy. This is a competition of ideas. We're going to use peer review, and we're going to use high-level guidance. You could think of it as a decadal survey-like document if you want. You could think of our grand challenges and our technology roadmaps as a decadal survey for technology, if you like. But we're going to use that guidance, and we're going to use the competition of ideas to build an open community of innovators across the nation. Much like SMD does, the Science Mission Directorate does, in the selection of their missions, frankly. Another key facet of this program that is different than the way NASA's done technology in the past is what I call a projectized approach. We are not going to make investments in an area, and I'll just pick one, okay? We're not going to make investments in, let's say, structures and materials for the next decade. I mean, we may end up doing that, okay? But I'm not going to commit to that today. What I will commit to is the starting of a number of projects in structures and materials that have defined start and defined end dates, and that are led by project managers that are given full authority and responsibility for making those projects happen. This project focus, I mean, I've worked all my life in a project focus kind of way. It's a great way to operate. It pushes schedule. It forces us to take risk. It forces us to be innovative. This is exactly what we need in our technology programs. We don't want technology programs that are, frankly, that are incremental. It'd be very easy for me to design a technology program that makes incremental progress year after year after year, and frankly, over a decade or so, does nothing that I can point at. What we've done instead is design a program built on this projectized model. You can think of this as a DARPA-like model, if you will, where we're going to empower the project managers to get stuff done, and to get it done in a few years as opposed to a decade. That's not to say that a project that is grand in scope and really honestly takes 6 years to do, maybe that project gets funded in pieces, right? In 2 or 3 pieces, each one its own project. But there's no guarantee up front that that will occur. The projects will be funded, some of them for a year, some of them for 2 years, some of them for 3 years. None of them will receive a commitment of funding for longer than 3 years. As I said earlier, the overarching goal of this program is to reposition NASA on the cutting edge. When I travel around the country and I talk to school kids, or when I talk to people in the public about NASA, you'd be amazed. When I ask them what they think of when they think of NASA, they almost never say a particular mission. I mean, I would say the space shuttle, right? Or I would say the International Space Station, or in my case, I might say Mars Pathfinder, okay? But they never say that. You know what they say? They say cutting edge. They say risk-taking. They say innovation. These are the synonyms that the American public has for NASA. And through this program, we're going to reposition NASA in that way. We're going to instill technical rigor in everything we do. We're not going to fund science fiction, okay? But we're going to push the boundaries. We're going to take risk, right? And by the way, we're going to fail. Let me say that again. We are going to sometimes fail. It's okay. It's okay to fail. The Mars microprobes that I talked about earlier were a glorious failure. A failure from which lessons were learned, technology was advanced, and new missions were created. We're going to fail fast and learn every time we fail. Google has a saying that they borrowed, I believe, from the space program. Launch early, launch often. Right? That's the kind of thing that we're going to do in this program. And we're not going to just fail, by the way. We will succeed. And when we succeed, that success will allow our future to be something other than a straight line. And that's what really excites me. Let me, I just want to do a little aside here for a minute. I'm probably running long, and I apologize for that. But I found out yesterday that a team of students in Philadelphia, who I visited recently, in June, I should say, Congressman Fatah, took me up to Philadelphia, where I met a team of students led by really a remarkable teacher. It's at the West Philadelphia High School. It's a relatively underprivileged part of Philadelphia, part of the nation. What I saw at that school was amazing, and I want to share that with you. This team of students, led by this teacher, they entered something called the Progressive Automotive X Prize. Some of you may have heard of it. It's a competition, it's an X Prize-like competition, designed to develop a car that can be mass-produced and achieve 100 miles to the gallon. And this team of West Philadelphia high school students entered along with hundreds of other teams from around the country. Did Carnegie Mellon enter? Okay, thank you. Carnegie Mellon didn't enter, for the record. MIT did. Hundreds of teams from around the country entered this competition. And through a down selection process, the West Philadelphia team was still standing when it got down to about 10 or 20 teams. I went up there and I saw the cars that they had built, just amazing devices of technology, frankly. More importantly, I met the students that were learning through this hands-on experience. These are students that, frankly, may not have gone on to college had it not been for this program. But through this program, they were all excited about mechanical engineering, about robotics, about autonomy. A couple of them want to go to Carnegie Mellon, by the way. Red. It's in Pennsylvania. I mean, come on. You should have seen the look on these students' eyes when they were explaining to me what they had done. Well, the reason I'm bringing this up is that I found out this week that in the latest time trials, they were eliminated, this great team of students. By the way, the only student team left in the competition. They were still standing long after the MIT team was gone. They were very proud of that fact, I can tell you. I think a couple of them want to go to MIT. So I found out this week that this team of students is no longer in the competition. They were eliminated. The goal for this portion of the race was to get to 80 miles to the gallon, and they missed it by 1.9 miles to the gallon. They got over 78. 78 miles to the gallon. And in fact, they had a little bit of trouble with their power storage system. And I think had they not had that trouble, they would have easily qualified. But they're out. And I talked to through email, I exchanged thoughts with the teacher, who was a little down about this. But you know, to me, these guys are a tremendous success. Okay? Think about what these students learned. There's actually small businesses popping up in the Philadelphia area that want to take this technology and turn it into an industry. I'm not sure they'll be successful or not. That remains to be seen, right? But this is why technology investment, this is why innovation is important. Not just for when we succeed, but when we fail. For when we fail, we will learn and we will advance capability for the future. So the program, jumping back into our regularly scheduled program, space technology. We're starting off strong. We're building on the success of the Innovative Partnerships program. This program is not starting from scratch. We have centennial challenges that you'll hear more about today. We have SBIR, STTR. We have the IPP Seed Fund, the Innovative Partnership Seed Fund. These are all programs, FAST and Cruiser, I should also mention. These are all programs that are in existence in FY10 that are being merged into the new Office of the Chief Technologist and whose success we're going to build on as we move forward. In fact, in fiscal year FY11, about 40% of the funding, $234 million out of $572 million, is for innovative partnership program type content. And in fact, over the entire span of the President's budget request, about 25% of the budget is for expansion, if you will, of these successful programs. The other point I want to make is that this formulation team has been working hard and has made significant progress. They've worked rapidly and effectively. And this team and these programs are ready to go. We're ready to initiate these programs at the start of FY11. Grand challenges. I mentioned these a little bit earlier as well. Oop, it's on my screen. There we go. Grand challenges. I guess I'll try this one. We're still working on these grand challenges. This is a draft set, but I want to give you the idea of what we're thinking about here. What we've done is we started with NASA's strategic plan, and we've flowed NASA's strategic plan down into a set of grand challenges that are organized on this slide in 3 general categories: making space part of our routine environment, managing space as a natural resource, and quests for the future. Now, rather than going into any particular grand challenge, because I think we will in a subsequent presentation, what I want you to notice is the question mark in the bottom right-hand corner. That question mark is meant for you. That question mark is meant because we want your ideas and your thoughts on future grand challenges that could affect future solicitations through this program. The process that we've gone through is illustrated on this slide. As I mentioned, we started with NASA's strategic plan. We flowed that plan into these challenge goals. And you can imagine for any challenge goal, a set of enabling capabilities. We're not going to have a solicitation to go accomplish a grand challenge. That's too much to ask. But you can imagine a grand challenge being broken down into piece parts or enabling capabilities that we could have solicitations around. Those enabling capabilities will lead to transformational technologies. And some of the technologies that we expect to be fostered through this program are shown on this slide. These are not meant to be inclusive. This is just an example set of the kinds of long-term investments that one can expect to see through the space technology program. Overall, you might think of the program this way. Think of it as a funnel, if you will, where over in the early stage division, we cast a wide net and we seek a broad range of ideas from academia, from industry, and from government. We seek, if you will, hundreds of visions of the future. Now, I've worked on a number of these visions of the future. You heard me talk about a few of them. And I'll tell you, as a guy that's done a lot of systems analysis, there's nothing better than that systems analysis all wrapped up in that paper sitting on your desk or presented at a conference somewhere, right? It's just perfect. It's like a little baby waiting to be born, okay? There's only one trouble, right? Those visions of the future, they always depend on just some little bit of physics that has yet to be proven, some fundamental physics that has to be shown to work in practice. And if it were to work in practice, that whole concept is in the bank. Okay? Well, it's in the game-changing program, the game-changing technology division, where we're going to go after that fundamental physics through ground-based testing, through laboratory testing. It's where we're going to advance some of your ideas, some of your visions of the future into the next stage. And we're going to make larger investments in those ideas. Some of those investments will pan out, and as I mentioned earlier, some will not. Those that pan out will go on to flight demonstration, to TRL of 6, Technology Readiness Level of 6. We'll accomplish that in the Cross-Cutting Capability Demonstration Division. And we'll do so in partnership with the mission directorates or with other government agencies. And when I say partnership, I mean more than just standing on the side being a cheerleader. I mean partnership in terms of cash. We're going to ask our partners to get involved with us in the cross-cutting area on our bigger programs to demonstrate that they're with us from an infusion perspective, to demonstrate that they're involved with us early on. In fact, we're going to engage them as early as the game-changing, and in some areas over an early stage as well. We're going to engage our partners there. But we're going to rely on them financially starting in the Cross-Cutting Capability Demonstration Division. I've used the phrase TRL, Technology Readiness Level, already a couple times. I believe that most of you are aware of the Technology Readiness Level scale. If I was to plot these programs on a Technology Readiness Level scale from 1, which is concept studies, all the way to TRL 6, which is demonstration in a flight-relevant environment, this is how those divisions would shake up. As I mentioned, we're looking at system concepts and analyses primarily in early stage. We're looking at ground-based and laboratory testing in game-changing. And we're looking at flight demonstration and actual missions, small-scale missions, in cross-cutting capability demonstrations. A little bit more on each of these divisions. You're going to hear many of the details to come. But in the early stage innovation division, we have 5 programs. There'll be speakers who give you the details on 4 of these 5. I'm going to mention the missing program, if you will, in just a moment. But the key point that I want you to know about early stage innovation is that because we are casting our net widely, and because this is a competition of ideas, all of our awards in this entire division will be made competitively. This is a competition open to all, open to the NASA centers, open to external organizations in academia and industry, open to teams of folks or single organizations. That's up to the proposers to figure that teaming arrangement out frankly, in an ad hoc kind of manner. But all of our awards will be made in that manner. The one program that you're not going to hear a lot more about is the Center Innovation Fund, so I want to mention it quickly. The Center Innovation Fund is a growth of the IPP Seed Fund, the Innovative Partnership Program Seed Fund, which has been in existence for the last few years. We are going to provide a fund distributed across the NASA centers. That fund will be managed by the Center Chief Technologists, who you'll hear more about later today, and will be an investment fund, if you will, by the Center Chief Technologists in innovation activities across that center in partnership with folks on the outside, in partnership with academia and industry. In the game-changing division, we have 2 major programs, the Game-Changing Development Program and the Franklin Small Satellite Subsystem Technology Program. You'll hear the details of each of these programs from subsequent speakers. And I want to point out here that in game-changing, we're also using this competitive model. Greater than 70% of the funds across the President's budget horizon, FY11 to FY15, will be applied to competitive selections in the game-changing division. The same thing is true in cross-cutting. In the cross-cutting capability demonstration division, we will also apply greater than 70% of the funds through competitive selection. And here we have 3 programs. The Technology Demonstration Missions Program, if you think about the size of an individual project, the Technology Demonstration Missions Program will have the largest individual projects clearly. These are the biggest single item pieces within the entire space technology portfolio. This division also includes management of the new Edison Small Satellite Missions Program and the Flight Opportunities Program, which is a merging of the prior FAST and Cruiser programs, and you'll hear more about that today. What will come out of this program? Where will we be 5 years from now? Through these investments, I can tell you, we'll be in a much better place in terms of our potential aeronautics and space futures. I can't tell you with certainty what will come out of this program because it's going to depend on you. It's going to depend on your ideas, your innovations. It's going to depend on you taking a little risk and being dedicated to those concepts and those ideas and making them happen. But these are the kinds of things that I can envision could come out of this program. These are the kinds of things, by the way, that if you look around the room or if you talk to people that have done NASA studies for a number of years, that we all know that we need to enable our future aeronautics, science, and exploration missions. You can go into decadal surveys on the Science Mission Directorate, or you can look at design reference missions from the human exploration side of the house. Or you can look at national strategies for aeronautics. And you can see these kinds of things called out, these cross-cutting kinds of technological capabilities that could greatly enhance our future missions, but which the NASA mission directorates, because, and rightly so, because they are so near-term focused, never seem to be able to get around to. I'll just pick one on this slide. Aerocapture is an example. Right? I've worked on aerocapture proposals 3 or 4 times in the course of my career. It's been proposed through a variety of missions, science missions. It's been a part of various human exploration architectures. But each time it comes up, and we make progress on it, by the way, each time, but never has this mission been taken all the way to flight because of the risk posture that, frankly, the agency has been willing to accept previously in our science and exploration missions. And so it's through the technology programs that we can take the risk to demonstrate perhaps this technology or other technologies like it. How are we going to manage the program? Well, without going into all the details, I do want to point out the Space Technology Program has a significant budget, and NASA is going to manage that budget just like the mission directorates manage their large programs. There will be program reviews, there will be application of flight project practices where applicable, or tailored versions, certainly, of flight project practices, and applicable agency documents. Within the Office of the Chief Technologist, we're going to have what I would call a directorate level PMC, or Program Management Council, that will regularly review the progress of these activities. One thing that you may find different in the Space Technology Program is that we're going to be looking to terminate activities. We're going to be looking to terminate activities that are not proceeding according to plan, and take those funds and accelerate activities that are doing well, or create new activities that could do well. We are going to purposely be looking to do that. These programs will also be managed, by the way, with the help of a number of what I call Level 2 program offices. And if you go back to my early organizational chart, I didn't highlight it, but the Level 2 program offices for many of the programs were shown there. And they include, they span across 5 NASA centers. Those Level 2 program offices will report to program executives at NASA headquarters, who will report up to the division directors and ultimately to me, the Chief Technologist of the agency. I mentioned strategic integration. I do want to discuss real quick how we're going to do that. We have a governance model for technology that's been approved. It was approved in May. NASA has not actually had a governance model for technology previously. We've established 2 councils. One is called the NASA Technology Executive Council. This council is chaired by myself and consists of the Mission Directorate Associate Administrators and the NASA Chief Engineer. It's in this forum where we're integrating our technology investments, the investments within the Mission Directorates and those within the Space Technology Program. It's in this forum where we're looking at redundancy and overlap, or perhaps more importantly, where we're looking at gaps in our investment process, and where we're going to correct that. This is a decision-making body. We also have the Center Technology Council, and the Center Technology Council consists of the Center Chief Technologists from each of our centers, and is also chaired by the Office of the Chief Technologist. This council will focus on the institutionally funded activities, so the Center Innovation Fund and the other IPP-like activities that are managed at the centers currently. This council will also be where we get grassroots input on our technology plans. We do plan to fully engage the Center Chief Technologists in the management of this program. They're on my side of the firewall, if you will. They are not involved in center bid and proposal activities. They're working with me in the evaluation of those ideas, and the Center Chief Technologists are working with me in the day-to-day management and selection process of this program. We're going to talk a little bit more about the Center Chief Technologists later. In fact, we're going to give you a slide where we list all of their names and contact information. I do just want to point out that as part of our governance model, each center has now named a Chief Technologist. That Chief Technologist reports administratively to the Center Director, and that person was appointed by the Center Director. But from a program standpoint, I am really looking at that person as my eyes and ears and as my entry point to the activities of that center. And not just the technologies at that center, but how that center partners with the outside world, how that center innovates and partners with academia and industry. We're also kicking off a technology road mapping activity, and you'll hear a little bit more about this in our panel session tomorrow. We're not going to roadmap every possible technology area or every small technology investment that NASA makes, but we have identified 15 broad, cross-cutting technology areas that are of strategic importance to the agency. And we're going to develop roadmaps in those areas. We're going to do so, by the way, on a regular cycle, much like within the Science Mission Directorate, how they do decadal surveys, right? There's one going on right now in the Planetary Sciences Division. Okay? We're going to use these roadmaps, which are going to involve folks from inside of NASA developing detailed plans, but which are going to fully engage industry and academia through a National Academy process and through workshops and basically a National Academy level board or a council. We're going to engage the external community in developing this guidance, and then we're going to use this guidance as a high-level strategy document in planning our program. Oh, I should mention that we're not starting from scratch there, right? We actually have a set of roadmaps that were developed by the agency in 2004-2005 timeframe, and we're starting with those roadmaps in that process. Well, what have we done about engaging the external community? I started off today telling you how important you are and how much I appreciate you coming to this forum and how much I want your ideas. It's true. I really do. Some of our programs have actually have existed for a while, right? All of the innovative partnership programs have existed since before FY10, and they're continuing with their regular cycle of calls and activities. In fact, today we're going to have a discussion and a release of 3 new Centennial Challenges, right? That's part of our regular cycle of activity. In addition, the Space Technology Research Fellowship Program has initiated activities with the centers to plan on bringing in, to plan on starting a graduate fellowship program with our nation's universities. That is in work. We've also issued 3 RFIs for our technology demonstration missions and for the 2 small sat programs. Those are out there. The feedback has been tremendous, and we really do appreciate that feedback. Of course, we're here today to get more feedback and to engage with you further. And I do want to report that our internal planning process is proceeding well. It's proceeding effectively, and it's proceeding on a pace that will allow us to initiate this program at the start of the fiscal year, at the start of FY11. This is a list of the awards that we expect to make in FY11. These are the activities that we plan to foster, to sponsor, both through competition and in a guided mode. I'm not going to go through them all here, but you can see there's a large number of activities. These include activities that would be funded at a relatively modest dollar level, right? So some of the space technology research grants or the NIAC awards are in the 100K kind of level, all the way down to the large game-changing development awards, which are at the, say, the tens of millions of dollars kind of level, to the technology demonstration missions, which over a 3-year period will be above $100 million level. So there are a large number of programs, and there are a diverse suite of projects in terms of the award magnitude. And you'll be hearing more from the speakers that follow me on each of these programs. Let me conclude with a couple thoughts. First of all, the Obama administration has clearly demonstrated what they're interested in. You heard a little bit of that from Tom Khalil today. They're committed to a research, technology, and innovation agenda for the nation. They're committed to this agenda because it's a way to stimulate our economy, to build on our nation's global economic competitiveness, to create new products, high-tech jobs, new businesses, new services, and to engage students from around the country in this grand voyage and in our technological future. How awesome is it that NASA's budget request is aligned with this national strategy? I don't know why there's a debate. I can't tell you how excited I am that NASA is actually aligned at the federal level with a major national initiative. This doesn't always happen. And NASA's alignment with this initiative will allow the agency, in my view, to balance these 3 long-standing core competencies that have made the agency a unique place. You heard on the video, I don't want to turn NASA into a sandbox. I don't want NASA to be all research and technology all the time. NASA has to have missions. NASA has to have flight systems and operations. But just as it has to have those things, it has to have a strong research and technology competency to form the foundation from which we can build our future. And that's what's been lacking over the past decade. And that's what this program is all about. This program and our enhanced technology and innovation focus was not dreamed up overnight. It responds to a large and diverse set of external stakeholder criticisms that NASA received over the past years. It responds to 4 NRC reports, the NASA Authorization Act of 2008, and the Augustine Committee report, which has an entire chapter devoted to technology development. Pushing the boundaries and taking risk, that's what NASA's Space Technology Program intends to do. And we intend to do so to develop cross-cutting, game-changing solutions to our agency's technological needs. We need to do that to enable NASA's future missions, to enable better futures in aeronautics and in space. But that's not the only reason why we make these investments. We also make these investments to better our society, to drive economic competitiveness, to improve and to inspire the way, to improve the way we inspire students, to pull them into these fields, and frankly, to allow the intellectual capital of NASA and the intellectual capital across the aerospace sector to be applied to a number of grand societal challenges. Challenges in energy, weather and climate, health, and national security. And it's for all of these reasons that I'm excited to be here today. And it's for all of these reasons that I'm thrilled to be a part of the Space Technology Program. With that, I'll stop and see if there are any questions. Thank you. We have time for some questions. What do you think? 2 questions.
Good morning, Dr. Braun.
We'll have, by the way, just so you know, I'll be around all day, and we'll have plenty of time for more questions later, but just 2 now.
Good morning, Dr. Braun. I'm Charles War. I'm with the Food and Drug Administration. I'm the chief scientist for the design of our agency's new engineering and physics laboratories at the new campus at White Oak, Maryland, not far from here, where we're into things like laser physics, fiber optics, electromagnetic interference. We're into material science, surface chemistry, software verification, and other kinds of things which I think have a considerable overlap with NASA's technology and development missions. And I would like to propose that we have a discussion about collaborative opportunities between the 2 agencies, and in particular to invite you and appropriate members of your staff to come out to our new laboratories and take a look at the innovative things that we're doing to see if we can to develop some things together. So let me offer that invitation to you.
Awesome. No, seriously, thank you very much for being here.
We're the side of FDA
I didn't know you were coming. And,
we're the side of FDA that doesn't do food and doesn't do drugs, by the way. I have to explain that to people.
Yeah, let me, there wasn't really a question in there. Let me just say that I very much appreciate the invitation, and I will certainly take you up on it both later today and in follow-on discussions. But it does bring up a chance for me to talk a little bit about partnerships with other government agencies that I didn't really touch on significantly. We are taking that very seriously. In fact, you may know that across the entire administration, we've been incentivized significantly to look at partnership opportunities and to do things as a government, not as an individual agencies. I've already had a number of discussions with folks at DARPA. I've had meetings with the director at ARPA-E. We're working toward, with the folks over in the Defense Department, DDR&E guys, and working more with AFRL probably in the future as well. Heading up to NIST next month, and would love to talk with you some more as well. A couple of the topics that you ticked off your list there have me thinking already, and I do agree there are some areas that are probably well aligned. Thank you.
My name is Patrick Braun. I'm with TGV Rockets. How do you define game-changing technology, and how do you define disruptive technology?
Yeah, so I define them the same way. So let me just give you my definition. By the way, I didn't, yeah. So the game-changing phrase existed before me here at NASA. I actually prefer the phrase disruptive technology. I think it's actually a little more descriptive. And I define disruptive technology as a technology investment that changes the way we do business. So do you have a cell phone? Can you hold it up? Because I don't have mine. You have a cell phone? There you go. I bet every one of you, I would be surprised if someone in here does not own a cell phone. Anybody not own a cell phone? Any hands? You're embarrassed to admit it, right? Come on. I know that Buzz has 2 or 3 cell phones. I mean, come on. So a cell phone, I'm pointing, this is an everyday example, okay? But a cell phone is a disruptive technology. When I was working at NASA previously, I would do my work. The internet existed, so I would check my email, right? But now I walk around with this cell phone and I can't get away from email. I can't get away from texting. I'm in meetings texting about my next meeting, right? I'm not saying that the disruption was a good disruption, actually. But it certainly has changed the way we do business. The internet is perhaps another example, right? My kids don't believe me when I tell them that there was a time when there was no internet. and you actually had to go to the movie theater instead of downloading the movie, right? They don't actually believe that's true. Even though there are movie theaters around today, they don't believe that that's true. And so what I'm looking for are disruptive technological solutions that will change the way that NASA does its future missions. So the mission directorates have mission architectures, okay? And if you look at their mission architectures, they're sound. They're relatively low risk. They have to be, because they have to put these plans in place for 5, 10, 20 years out in the future, and then they get held accountable to those plans. So they can't bank on some technology, even in their architecture studies, that hasn't been proven at some level. What I want to do, frankly, through this program, is develop disruptive innovations that come about and cause them to change their architectures, right? As one example, as one near-term example, or every example that we're talking about today, if you look at the design reference mission for how we would send humans to Mars, it's almost always been about assembling a large ship in low Earth orbit and sending that large ship out, and doing so through a large number of heavy lift launches. Well, we're now talking about propellant depots, right? We're now talking about different ways to do that mission. We're also talking about storing propellant at various destinations around the solar system and accessing that propellant when we get to places, as opposed to bringing it all with us in one ship. Those are what I call, those are changes, right? I'm not sure if you would consider them game changers, but they are changing the way that NASA approaches its missions. And that's what we're looking for through this program.
Oh, no, there's absolutely game-changing technologies. Cell phones, orbital propellant depots. Those are broad left-hand changes. And then there's disruptive innovation, which is somewhat on the right and a little bit different. And the one thing to remember about disruptive innovation is that it changes who you're doing business with as much as anything else.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So the whole partnership and fostering of a commercial space industry. I mean, moving from our government-focused program to a commercial program, right? I can't think of anything that has been in Washington more disruptive and would be disruptive and an improvement to our economic situation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you all for your time. We're going to continue with our program.